we have the Smithville tornado. And again, I always preface these videos with that just saying that these are very serious. Again, my model smiles every now and then. It's just how it works. Um, we do take these seriously. And yeah, it's for more so a educational purpose because a lot of people don't take this seriously. And I want you to. I want you to be safe. I don't want you to be the guy in his attic recording a tornado hitting the house currently. So we've seen that. We've seen that. Spiegel Studios on Gerald. Have we seen Gerald? I'm not sure if we've seen Gerald. Yeah, it's just some wind, guys. It's not just some wind. No, no, no. Hi, Descon. Hi. Hello, hello. All right. Make sure I have my audio ready. Okay.
April 27th, 2011. Sirens are blaring across a small town in rural Mississippi as residents make their way to a local storm shelter. Cramming inside, the screams of the sirens begin to fade as a terrible roar gets louder and louder, drowning out the sounds of their panicked breaths as the...
See, I know those shelters are made for tornadoes, but I feel like with the ones above the ground, like those, just hearing the debris hit the sides and that
ground begins to
freaks me out
tremble.
thinking
The
about it.
strongest tornado in U.S. history has just entered their town.
Is the audio okay by the way, guys?
It's late April,
Yeah,
and
all these
meteorologists
bad
at the
tornadoes
Storm
happened in,
Prediction
April
Center are
2011.
scanning the atmosphere, looking for key ingredients needed for the formation of severe weather when they notice something concerning. A massive region of low pressure...
And just again, the April 2011 tornadoes, I was close to one of them, the Tuscaloosa one, where my family is actually a lot closer. They're like 2 miles away from where it hit at one part in Alabama. So I didn't realize how many there were because every time we see another um like strong tornado, it's like, oh, April 2011. Oh, there's another one. That's crazy.
pressure, called a trough, is moving across the United States. This giant, slow-moving trough is bringing with it a belt of extremely fast-moving winds
Smithville?
aloft, while at the same time drawing in inconceivable amounts of warm, moist air from the Gulf of Mexico, bringing together a dangerous combination of atmospheric conditions. The mixture of warm, moist air with cold, dry air aloft is generating large amounts of atmospheric instability needed for
2011 was
thunderstorms called
crazy.
convective available potential energy, or CAPE. Additionally, the fast-moving southwesterly winds of the trough are overspreading a powerful, low-level jet of air rushing north, creating incredibly large amounts of both speed and directional wind
sandy?
shear needed to cause thunderstorms to begin rotating. Noting that all the ingredients for severe weather are now in place, the Storm Prediction Center issues a rare, high-risk outlook for severe weather, including a 30% outlook for strong tornadoes.
Oh, that was such a scary
By 1
time.
a.m., a tornado outbreak was already underway across Mississippi and Alabama as unexpected lines of powerful thunderstorms called quasi-linear convective systems, or QLCS, moved
Huh?
across the area, spawning over 70 powerful tornadoes along with strong straight-line winds, causing widespread damage to infrastructure, while also leaving
I
behind...
was about to say, how many tornadoes was it? So it's 12 total? Like, were they all strong or were like some of them like I think someone said Sandy was 2011 as well. So luckily I was down in like south. I wasn't up where the Tuscaloosa tornado was. Thank goodness.
a dangerous thermal boundary draped across northern Alabama and Mississippi. As bad as things were, they were only going to get worse. As the sun begins to heat up the atmosphere on April 27th, meteorologists noticed that the storm system was even stronger than expected, prompting them to increase their outlook to an unbelievable 45% risk, noting, a major outbreak of intense, long track, and perhaps violent tornadoes is expected. However, none of them could have imagined the scale of what was about to take place. At 10:30 a.m., a cluster of storms erupts near Monroe, Louisiana, slowly gaining strength before merging together, organizing into a powerful, rotating thunderstorm called a supercell, spinning faster and faster as the clouds begin reaching towards the ground. Just after 3 p.m., an ominous-looking funnel hovers above the ground and within seconds reaches the surface. The newly formed tornado initially causes only weak damage as it tracks to the northeast, bringing down patches of trees and causing light damage to rural structures. However, just 1 minute later, the tornado rapidly intensifies, completely destroying a couple mobile homes and scattering the debris long distances.
If you're in a mobile home, please take weather seriously. Any risk of a tornado, even an EF1, EF0, I don't care. Please make sure you know you have an alternate structure or tornado shelter. Know where your city or town's local tornado shelter is. Please don't risk it. Please do not risk it. These people over here, well, I don't have my O on. I mean, you can be lucky, like these people over here, but I mean, this person or this right here was not very lucky at all. Live in a mobile home park. What am I supposed to do? Look for the nearest tornado shelter. Yeah, the nearest tornado shelter that is. You should be able to Google it. Of course, I don't know exactly where you are. You don't have one. It's Michigan. Is there like a structure near you, like even a gas station, like down the road or anything, like a actual solid structure? I would suggest that, if you have like a grocery store, convenience store, something, restaurant, just go there, and probably be a safer option for you.
The strengthening tornado continues to cause intense damage to rural structures, flattening large swaths of forest as it races to the northeast at over 60 miles.
But no basement? I mean, you don't really technically have to have it. Well, it's better to have a basement, but a lot of structures don't have underground areas. So it's still gonna, I mean, solid walls are going to be a lot better than a mobile home because a mobile home can be picked up or flipped over, etc. So
miles per hour. It's at this moment that multiple people begin recording the tornado for the first time as it approaches the small towns of Anchor and Dixieland. One of these residents, Jay Rogue, films the tornado as it approaches his location.
Oh, just straight on. That's a good view. Pick the tornado. Video of it.
With the roar of the approaching tornado only getting louder, the family decides to move out of the tornado's way. When they return, there's little remaining of their home.
Oh, they're lucky.
After sweeping away many homes at EF3 strength, the tornado races off to the northeast, leaving behind a visible scar in the ground. But unbeknownst to those in its path, the true power of the monster had yet to be unleashed. At 3:19 p.m., the National Weather Service issues a strongly worded tornado warning as the now large and extremely dangerous tornado is approaching the small towns of Okolana, New Wren, Amory, and Smithville, Mississippi. After crossing County Road 159, the tornado abruptly begins showing signs of extreme intensification, badly debarking trees and completely leveling well-built homes down to their foundations, with some being completely swept away. The narrow but violent core of the rapidly expanding tornado became so intense here that it even began to rip up the earth, creating a nearly mile-long swath of severe ground scouring despite moving at over 60 miles per hour. At this speed and size, this extreme damage is inflicted in less than 2 seconds.
Debarking trees, yep. It seems like these tornadoes that happened during this time, I mean, which one? The dead men walking one. Was it 2011? We've seen too many tornado videos, I feel like now. But the dead men walking one, it basically like skinned animals and stuff. It's because of the debris. Like that one creeped me out too much. I just did not appreciate that one at all.
At the same moment, local resident Greg Lambert takes a photo of the tornado, revealing the monster wedge as it passes just to his north.
Okay, that was Gerald. Thank you.
4 miles away on Highway 45 alternate, 55-year-old Lynn Davis is driving south in his white pickup truck on his way to help his friend Tim, who suffered damage from a tornado earlier that day.
No.
While on the phone with Tim, Lynn begins to notice something strange approaching over the trees and utters a chilling phrase. That looks like a tornado, before the phone call suddenly ends. A semi-truck driver driving directly behind Lynn watches in horror as Lynn's vehicle is peeled off the roadway by the ferocious winds of the tornado. Soaring hundreds of feet into the air, Lynn and his truck begin to orbit around the violent winds of the twister, trapped inside the tornado's grip in a cruel balance of forces as it begins to close in on the small community of Chapel Grove. Crashing into the community at peak strength, the tornado inflicts incredible damage to several well-constructed brick homes, completely sweeping them off their foundations, causing intense vegetation damage and scouring the ground. As the tornado
Girls
moves
97,
past town,
okay.
however, it suddenly begins to weaken, breaking the delicate balance of forces that have trapped Lynn Davis and his truck mid-air. And suddenly, Lynn comes crashing back to Earth, sadly killing him on impact.
I was going to say, it would be amazing if you told me that he lived. That would be terrifying. Just, I just wonder. I don't know. It's like I want to think about it, but I don't want to think about it at the same time about how it felt, how you were feeling during that process. Was he gone at landing or before? It's just I don't
Lynn Davis's truck had
I
flown an
don't
unbelievable 1.7 miles through the air before finally landing near the foundation of one of the destroyed
yeah, I
homes,
definitely would not
the
survive.
furthest distance a vehicle has ever been thrown by a tornado. Over the next 10 miles,
Some of these
the
people have been
tornado
shocked.
destroys several homes.
Like the guy I was mentioning earlier about him standing in his attic recording the tornado hitting his house. And he survived. Yet his wife, who did everything correctly in the basement, or not in the basement, but in the lower level, in a safe area, she didn't make it. Like, how, how, how do these things happen?
Foundation of one of the destroyed homes, the furthest distance a vehicle has ever been thrown by a tornado. Over the next 10 miles,
Yeah.
the tornado destroys several homes near the town of New Wren before finally dissipating at 3:39 p.m. just north of the city of Amory, Mississippi, claiming the lives of 4 people. However, something far stronger was brewing. As the first tornado begins to weaken, the parent supercell continues to track to the northeast, drawing closer and closer to the dangerous thermal boundary left by storms earlier in the day.
So you're saying that
Near
one
the
was in
boundary,
Smithville.
saturated air and backed winds will lower the storm's base closer to the ground and increase the already incredibly high low-level wind shear, turning an already historic atmosphere into what is possibly the most extreme tornadic environment ever recorded. If the supercell could tap into this environment, a tornado of unimaginable power would be released, and at 3:40 p.m., that's exactly what happened. Sirens begin to scream as the supercell merges with a smaller storm to its south, developing a new area of powerful rotation just to the north of the dissipating tornado. While this is happening, 2 amateur storm chasers, Camille Collins and Ashley Hurley, go outside to get a better look at the intensifying storm and begin recording the clouds.
Yeah. I know you can't really see very well, but we can see what's happening. That is...
Within just a few seconds, the two begin to notice a strange-looking cloud passing directly to their northwest that begins rotating incredibly quickly. Moments later, a funnel lowers towards the ground.
That's fast.
Hovering just above the surface, the tornado starts its life as a relatively weak vortex, doing little more than snapping trees as it moves along the Tombigbee waterway, but this weak phase is short-lived.
Speaking of rain-wrapped, I'll go back a little bit. If your meteorologist says, hey, there's a tornado, it is rain-wrapped. Please don't say, oh, maybe I can find it. No. Please don't do that. You literally cannot see it. At all. Because I know, like, James Spann, he always said, it's rain-wrapped. Do not try and go record the tornado. Get in a safe place now. When he took his jacket off, he's serious at that point. Always listen to your meteorologist.
moves along the Tombigbee Waterway, but this weak phase is short-lived. The tornado's condensation funnel suddenly reaches the ground and explodes in intensity, drilling a narrow but incredibly intense swath of damage, removing several inches of grass and soil from the surface. At the same time, the now violent tornado crashes into a forest, flattening every single tree in its path, stripping them of their bark. It's at this moment, however, that something unexpected happens. As the tornado passes through the forest, its core suddenly collapses. Ripped apart by the intense wind shear, the tornado struggles, only inflicting minor damage to trees and low-lying vegetation as it races to the northeast. For a brief moment, it appears as if the residents in the storm's path have just dodged a bullet, avoiding the worst of the storm's wrath. However, this lapse in strength isn't going to last long. Just as fast as it weakened, the tornado strikes a delicate balance between the powerful wind shear trying to tear it apart and the unstoppable power of the storm's updraft trying to keep it together, and a tornadic core of incredible power crashes to Earth. Instantly, all the trees and vegetation surrounding the vortex are flattened and debarked as the core accelerates from EF1 to EF5 intensity.
You're telling me. Now, correct me if I'm understanding this wrong. So you're saying it started here as an EF0 and got to an EF5 right here? Or is it just saying like it's slowly got intense over time? You're telling me it went from 0 to 5? Or like 0 to 5? Huh. Like from here to here. Right? Or from like down here up here. Because if it's from here to here, that's insane of how fast the wind's going from just a tiny distance. It isn't a short time. I paused early. Oh, it'll tell me then. Okay. Because I see the intensity up there. I'll go back. I'll go back 5 seconds.
And are flattened and debarked as the core accelerates from
thank you.
EF1 to EF5 intensity in less than 6 seconds. At the
I always pause at the worst time. In 6 seconds? I have this weird thing about timing, by the way. I always get it right. I don't know why. But 6 seconds. Is that like the fastest is like an EF0 became an EF5? Because there's no way anything else would be faster than that. I didn't think it could be that fast. I was thinking maybe like minutes, going by. That's so quick.
same time, the winds inside the vortex become so strong and the pressure drops so violently that the ground begins to literally explode outwards, digging a trench in the ground over a foot deep and 170 yards long. Unbelievably, due to the tornadic core's fast-forward speed and relatively small size, this incredible feat of damage is inflicted in less than half a second. Racing to the northeast at a brutal 63 miles per hour, the tornado begins to set its sights on the small town of Smithville, Mississippi. 3/4 of a mile to the northeast, Tim Nix, along with several others, are frantically descending down the opening of a storm shelter when they catch a glimpse of the whirling gray mass racing directly at them. With just seconds to spare, Tim takes a photo of the approaching tornado before closing the door to the shelter behind him.
He was right there.
Rapidly expanding and growing stronger with every second that passes, the tornado impacts the intersection of Davis Road and Highway 25, deeply scouring the ground and completely sweeping away 2 mobile homes as well as a bed and breakfast, granulating the debris into tiny pieces and scattering what was left long distances downwind. 3 people are thrown into the air as their homes disintegrate around them, 2 of which, a mother and daughter, are thrown into a nearby culvert and miraculously survive despite major injuries. The third, however, thrown from the bed and breakfast, is sadly killed, becoming the first person to lose their life to the tornado. At the same location, 3 vehicles stood parked near the bed and breakfast, a large RV and 2 semi-trucks. As the core passes, all 3 vehicles soar into the air despite weighing tens of thousands of pounds each, flying for hundreds of yards The RV and one of the semi-trucks come crashing to earth, deeply embedding themselves into the ground as unrecognizable husks of scrap metal.
You know, when they say you gotta worry about the debris in these tornadoes, this also counts as debris. You're not getting hit with a newspaper, you're getting hit with a truck. 'Cause, I mean, it's like, you don't really think about it until you're shown it. Because 'Cause I'm thinking, like, debris as in, like, 2 by 4s, you know, something like that, glass. You don't really think of an entire vehicle, truck not just even a vehicle, an RV, a semi-truck, like, if it had the pipes on its load, the pipes being your debris. Because
The second
personally, me, I didn't
semi-truck
even think
and
about
one
that.
of its cargo of 5 65 steel pipes, however,
Yep, pipes.
disappears into the tornado and is never seen again, ripped to pieces by the violent winds. Half a mile to the northwest, employees working at the Glover Wilkins Lock and Dam begin to film what they are seeing.
There. Man,
They say
that's
no,
just
it's
to
going
the
that
east
way.
of us. Man, you ought to see this debris up in there.
The employees watch as the funnel morphs into a large wedge shape, moving incredibly quickly and centrifuging debris in all directions.
Okay, it's moving
The tornado
fast.
has gone from a stout cone to a massive wedge in just 23 seconds. At the same time, 85-year-old Jesse Cox is sheltering in his home when the core overtakes him. The decades-old home is no match for the ferocious winds of the core and is completely swept away, with the debris granulated into tiny pieces, sadly resulting in the death of Jesse. The destruction had been so violent that the concrete foundation itself was lifted, chipped, and partially dislodged, along with completely shredding and debarking all vegetation nearby. Continuing to deeply scour the ground, the tornado begins to enter the main part of Smithville and encounters home after home, pulverizing each one in its path and claiming another life. Just ahead on Highway 25, Jimmy Cowley attempts to race ahead of the tornado in his truck, but realizes he isn't going to make it. Jimmy turns into a driveway as his windows implode around him. His vehicle is lifted into the air and tumbles as if it were made of plastic before crashing back onto the road. Miraculously, Jimmy survives despite receiving a severe laceration to his head from flying debris.
Oh my gosh.
However, many of those around him are not as fortunate. 3 more would lose their lives here as their homes are wiped away around them. At one of the destroyed homes, a red Ford Explorer SUV disappears into the vortex, becoming a deadly missile as it flies through the air. As the power within the tornado grows stronger, the compact but extremely violent core begins to inflict extreme feats of damage, completely sweeping away homes, throwing vehicles into unrecognizable balls of metal, and creating such a strong suction effect that curtains in nearby homes are sucked up between the ceiling and walls.
Wall?
Some of the most impressive damage, however, would come from the large trees growing.
Some of these things you don't even think about. This curtain's got sucked up through the wall. Ceiling crack thing. Whatever you call it. I don't know.
Along Highway 25. These trees, weighing several tons each, were not only completely debarked and denuded, but were violently ripped out of the ground and granulated into wooden splinters, leaving nothing behind but dirt-filled craters lining the road. More and more debris begins to fill the air, becoming deadly shrapnel to anything unlucky enough to be caught in its path. Homes, trees, and businesses alike all become sandblasted by these deadly high-speed projectiles as the storm barrels through town. Crossing over Main Street, a manhole cover and its steel ring are ripped away, leaving behind a bare concrete hole while the Ford Explorer continues to soar overhead. Half a mile to the east,
Saga?
a security camera at the Smithville Police Department captures the outer edge of the tornado as objects fly across the screen before the video suddenly cuts out. 3 more large, well-built homes are obliterated along Main Street, mutilating trees, scouring the driveways, ripping the plumbing out of the ground, sweeping the
those are nice
foundations
houses.
clean, and scattering the fragments hundreds of yards away, claiming another life.
Oh.
Scattered across town,
Oh,
numerous
so creepy.
people scramble underground or to whatever shelter they can find in the few seconds they have left. The ground began to shake as a deafening roar grew louder and louder. One survivor described the sound as if a giant hammer was pounding the ground over and over again, like a sonic boom that repeats itself. Crashing into a row of mobile homes, the tornado claims another life as it closes in on the Pearson family home where Carla Jones is babysitting 3 children. With the deafening roar of the tornado quickly approaching and not enough time to make it to a shelter, Carla rushes the kids into the home's bathtub and lays on top of them in an effort to shield the children from the worst of the storm.
Oh.
Despite going to the safest place possible in the large 2-story home, no structure is capable of surviving what's coming. The entire home is torn down to the concrete foundation. Incredibly, the home's anchor bolts are ripped up and swept away, leaving nothing behind but a clean slab and completely debarked trees. The 3 children disappear into the vortex and are found 100 yards away on a nearby baseball field, severely injured but somehow still alive. Carla, however, is killed. She was only 37 years old at the
The kids survived? Mm. Poor babysitter. Dang.
time and gave her life to save the 3 children.
And kids that weren't even hers.
Simultaneously, the red Ford Explorer that was picked up half a mile earlier
The way I say that is, like, she defended or she protected these kids that weren't even her children. She didn't have to, technically. I mean, being the babysitter, she really put her life and, you know, on the line for them. Oh,
along Highway 25 slams into the Smithville water tower, colliding with such extreme force it leaves a large 6-inch deep dent into the structure's solid steel frame before bouncing off and disappearing back into the tornado's
how did they
grip.
know that was the Ford Explorer, though?
Spotting the whirling gray mass just seconds before impact, Michelle Wardlaw and her grandmother run across Elm Street for the nearest storm shelter. Unable to hear or speak to each other over the deafening roar, they watch in awe as cars, trees, and pieces of houses fly above their heads. Michelle and her grandmother are swept off their feet by the ferocious winds of the twister, but in an incredible stroke of luck, land inside the doors of the storm shelter, sparing their lives. Their neighbors, however, would not be so fortunate. As the tornado crosses into the town's eastern subdivision, it reaches its maximum intensity, inflicting tornado damage so extreme it seems inconceivable. Deep, extreme ground scouring carves into the surface as half a dozen large, well-built, multi-story homes are wiped off the face of the earth as if
What else could put a 6-inch deep dent in a water tower? A truck. Pipes. Water tank. I don't know.
they had never existed. The tornado destroys the homes so violently that the debris was granulated into tiny, unrecognizable pieces. Not even a road is able to survive the
That's
terrible winds as the
insane.
tar surface peels away into neatly compacted rolls. Of the 8 people in this area who didn't make it to an underground shelter, not a single one would survive. Like a knife carving into the landscape, the tornado crosses Monroe Street and reaches the Smithville Cemetery and Funeral Home. Gravestones are ripped apart and lofted as the entire brick funeral home is granulated so violently that the bricks turn into a fine powder. The only things remaining on the property are a bare concrete slab and craters where trees had once stood. Alongside the destroyed funeral home, a red husk of steel lay in a ditch among the debris and debarked vegetation.
That's an Explorer.
Unbelievably,
Dang.
this ball of steel was the red SUV picked up along Highway 25 that impacted the Smithville water tower. The truck had
I'm surprised
completed
the
a
water tower
mile-long
stood.
journey through the air before finally landing among the devastation at the edge of town. Crawling out from the destruction, a man in town takes out his phone and begins to film the monster tornado.
I mean,
Its roar clearly audible from over
that's pretty impressive. You just got hit by that thing and you are stable enough to go and record it. Like, I would be freaking out looking around and stuff. I don't know, actually. I don't know what I would do. I guess maybe I would, like, look and see, like, how big it was now that it's passed, and I know it's not gonna turn around immediately. So, I don't know. What else can you do? I mean, I guess assess the damage and see if neighbors need help or anything. I don't know personally. I mean, who knows? I could be the one going and recording the tornado,
a mile away. In
I don't know
less
what
than
I'd do.
2 minutes, the entire
I don't wanna
northern
know.
half of Smithville was completely destroyed, leaving behind a hellish landscape and taking the lives of 16 people. But the tornado is far from finished. At 3:47 p.m., the tornado finally exits Smithville and begins to track through rural forested terrain, growing wider and wider before reaching its peak width of nearly a mile wide, flattening entire forests in its wake. To this day, these images depict some of the worst vegetation damage ever inflicted by a tornado. Darnell Colums, worried about her daughter Camille, the same Camille who recorded the tornado's first moments back in Smithville,
Daughter's
steps
fine.
outside and captures the violent wedge passing just to her west. This
It's
image
passing.
is by far the most iconic image ever captured of the tornado. After crossing the Alabama border, the tornado's track begins to shift more to the east, putting the projected path straight towards the town of Hackleburg, itself obliterated by another EF5 tornado just minutes earlier.
Oh yeah, I forgot Hackleburg got hit by twice.
However, as the tornado approaches, a miracle seems to take place. The path curves farther to the north, sparing the already devastated town, but now moving dangerously close to rural homes northwest of the town of Hamilton. Running to the back porch of a home, Scott Smith films the tornado as it crosses over Interstate 22, passing dangerously close to his home.
We're watching one go across about a mile from us right here, right now. See debris in the air. Y'all better take cover.
You're just brave over there watching the debris.
Although not as large and powerful as it had once been, the tornado is rapidly regaining both its size and strength and heading directly towards Highway 19. 2 miles to the north along County Road 157, Dave Forster begins filming the tornado as it passes to his south, revealing that within just a couple minutes, the tornado has already morphed back into a large wedge. At the same time the video is being filmed, a large family home along Highway 19 is directly struck and destroyed. 6 people tragically lose their lives in this single house alone as the walls collapse onto them. Racing through the rural areas at nearly 70 miles per hour, the tornado explosively intensifies, regaining its extremely violent core as it crosses and parallels Highway 20. Thousands of trees are completely debarked and flattened, with even the ground beneath them deeply scoured. No match for the violent winds, a collection of manufactured homes, along with vehicles nearby, disappear into the vortex as if they never existed, scattering metal fragments hundreds of yards away into the obliterated forests. Tragically, 51-year-old Rodney Abels is killed when his home is overtaken by the tornado. Moments later,
So you
his
have to be
wife Sheila,
underground.
who survived the Hackleburg tornado earlier that day, arrives home only to find a bare slab. Continuing to cause incredibly violent damage to trees and rural structures, the tornado remains over mostly forested terrain, avoiding the populated areas north of the town of Hackleburg before beginning to gradually weaken and finally dissipating 2 miles east of Hodges, Alabama, after being on the ground for nearly 40 miles. The tornado had ended, but the destruction had not. All across Mississippi and Alabama, dozens of tornadic supercells in the same volatile atmosphere produce hundreds of strong to violent tornadoes,
That was a bad
including
day.
3 other EF5s in the towns of Philadelphia, Hackleburg, and Rainsville, unleashing untold
Have we seen
devastation
Rainsville?
and claiming the lives of 324 people. Back
Need
in
to do some more
Smithville,
research on
however,
this.
the scene was apocalyptic. Those that survived emerged into a barren wasteland with everything around them completely unrecognizable. 23 people lost their lives, while countless others suffered severe, life-altering injuries. The damage, however, was nothing short of incredible. The tornado dug deep trenches into the ground, threw vehicles miles through the air, obliterated entire forests, and completely swept away numerous, well-built structures and granulated them into dust, doing all this while moving at over 60 miles per hour. This combination of incredible damage and rapid forward speed, along with existing in one of the most extreme tornadic environments ever documented, lead many to believe that Smithville is the strongest tornado in recorded history.
Now, I was about to ask, like, does anyone know what the strongest tornado is? Well, I guess it might be this one then. Because that's a lot of deaths. Apparently, if you just weren't underground, you just didn't have a chance.
14 years later, the residents of this small town in northern Mississippi won't soon forget that tragic afternoon on April 27th, 2011.
Oh, man. Gosh. Mm-mm. Oh, man, I feel so bad for these people. In the land of Earthrim. Hello, potion seller. I am going into battle, and I want your strongest potions. My potions are too strong for you, traveler. Potion seller, I am telling you, I need your strongest potions. I'm going into battle. I'm going into battle, and I need your strongest potions. My strongest potions would kill you, traveler. You can't handle my strongest potions. You better go to a seller that sells weaker potions. Potion seller, what do I have to tell you to get your potions? Why won't you trust me with your strongest potions? Potion seller, I need them if I'm going to be successful in battle. My dear traveler, the only way I will sell you my potions is if you use code SPIT at checkout to save 10% off of your purchase. That is the only way. Then it shall be done. I will use code SPIT at checkout to save 10% off of my purchase. Thank you. And the traveler went and won their battle with the help of the amazing Gamer Subs.